Welcome everybody. Welcome board, cabinet, members of the community. Thank you for joining us tonight. If we could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome again. All right. So, there's two things I want to point out right now. We are going to be going into closed session in a few minutes. Once we talk through a number of items, we'll go into closed session. But the other item that I wanted to point out, if anyone is here to speak during unscheduled audience participation, there are participation cards on the back table. If you could, grab one of those, fill it out, and then you can bring it over to Angela right over here. Thank you. Okay. Mary, attendance?
Certainly. President Donnelly is excused. Vice President Griffith?
Here.
Secretary Hanser, present. Treasurer Bailey?
Here.
Trustee D'Alessandro?
Here.
Trustee Foster?
Here.
Trustee Schaefer? Here.
Thank you. Tim, any changes to the agenda?
None tonight.
Thank you. All right, we've got a consent agenda in front of us. Meeting minutes from February 22nd. Meeting minutes from February 28th, special meeting. Minutes from the March 4th special meeting. There's a bills payable for February. And new hire recommendations. Would anybody put a motion on the floor? Eric?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Support? Corey? Discussion? Heather?
I just wanted to say something about the minutes because there seems to be some misinterpretation of the amending of things like that. Per the Open Meetings Act, that we cannot amend or change any minutes after they've been approved. So like in this example, we're approving the consent agenda, which includes minutes from several different meetings, the 22nd, the 28th, and March 4th. That means that those meetings cannot be altered or changed after the fact. That's part of the way that the law is written, the Open Meetings Act itself. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that that was explained. There seems to be some talk that, to go back and change minutes and things like that. You can't do that once it's been approved. Once a consent agenda has been approved, it becomes, it's kind of locked in. So it cannot be brought back out, discussed. You can discuss it as a subject matter, but it's been approved.
Okay. Thanks, Heather. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. All right. Michigan Student Leadership. Steve Wolf. Is he here? Okay.
Good evening. The Michigan Student Leadership State Conference was held this February 26th to 28th in Grand Rapids. And this event, we had approximately, it was a 27 students attend this year from Oxford High School, which is actually a little bit higher participation rate than we normally have, which I think says something about the person we're going to recognize here in a moment. And this is put on by the Michigan Association of Student Council and Student Leadership. And this is a state conference each year that they bring in for different schools across the state, keynote speakers, those who are involved in different leadership capacities, to talk with students about different topics, about some real world issues. And the conference also takes students through different activities where they can collaborate not only with one another but with other students from across the state, different activities on self-growth, service towards others, and of course leadership. And so this year we had a student speaker as part of the event. They'll often have students who will, what they call student voice, share and present something they're really passionate about. And we had senior Evan Kushner present on Oxford and what it really means to be Oxford strong, and had a wonderful message in his presentation. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd, and ended with just a standing ovation, round of applause from everybody that was there for that event. And so Evan did a fantastic job. It was definitely a highlight of the state conference. Another highlight of the state conference was that our very own Oxford High School Miss Katie Goetz was named Michigan Student Advisor of the Year.
Congratulations.
Very well deserved. Katie's been, with student council and student leadership class and program for 13 years now, and so she's been an integral part of our student body, their involvement in the school, which ultimately impacts our school culture and climate, and so she's done an amazing job. You win this award through student submissions and votes, as well as staff votes, and so not surprised at all that she would win this award. Very involved in our building, and has done an excellent job here in the last few months, not only helping students heal, but helping them stay connected to the school, and help them get back to having that desire and passion to hold different events, and get our student body as a whole invested back in the building. And that's an incredibly difficult challenge to hold, given the difficulty we're having right now, and the tragedy we're all grieving from, but beginning to heal from. And so Katie's really stepped up, and first and foremost has done a great job listening to students, seeing what they need and what we can do to support them, support their healing, and then ultimately help them lead our student body. And so we're really, really proud of Katie. She's had her work cut out for her this year, but she does an amazing job with our students, and I know our students would have 2 or 3 hours, Miss Weaver, up here to say some strong words and positive affirmations for Miss Goetz, but I've been told I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to stick to my 3 minutes. Yeah, but we're really, really proud of Katie Goetz. Yeah.
Very proud.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me. Next, permanent link to high school memorial, temporary memorial. Ken?
Good evening. I'm just going to bring up Darren Page, who's with Oakland County Emergency Management. He's been instrumental in facilitating this, and he will present the others that have been involved as well, too. Darren?
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us to participate tonight. Again, my name is Darren Page. I'm a specialist with Oakland County Emergency Management. In the emergency management world, we help communities and partners prepare for, respond to, and recover from their most challenging days and events, and certainly November 30th here in Oxford qualifies. At our office, we've been providing assistance wherever we found opportunities here since November 30th. We were involved in the on-site memorial from very early on, including providing the tents that help protect it. When the discussion arose on when to take down the initial on-site memorial, we all realized that whatever decision was made, there would be people with very strong feelings on the other side of the decision. After much discussion and research by the school district, it was decided that the majority of students and their families would prefer that the initial on-site memorial be removed before the first day of the return to classes at the high school in January. However, we wanted to have some way of capturing the actual memorial itself and make it a living memorial to be permanently memorialized. As a retired police officer and crime scene investigator, I realized that there was a tool available that would allow us to at least capture a 3-dimensional model of the initial on-site memorial, which is a laser optical scanner. While I was confident that any police department that I reached out to for assistance would be happy to help us, including your local partners here at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, for convenience, I contacted my old department, the West Bloomfield Police Department, to assist with this project. Sergeant Robert Houchins, the current commander of the West Bloomfield Police Department's Evidence Technician Unit, loved the idea and got the enthusiastic approval of his Chief of Police, Michael Patton, the next day. Sergeant Houchins had the foresight to contact the company that they use to support their software and training for additional assistance, Noir Technologies. Michelle Studer, the Vice President of Noir Technologies, then led this project and brought in additional resources to enhance this project enhance the final product that you'll see here tonight. So I'll now be able to turn it over to Michelle and introduce the rest of the team she brought with her tonight. Chad Studer, the President of Noir Technologies. Tyler McMillan, one of the UAV pilots and HDS specialists who helped document the scene. Jason Culp, the Autodesk AE specialist, who also assisted there. Representing Kitely Technologies, Jason Weiner, the Chief Operating Officer, and representing the West Bloomfield Police Department, Officer James Pettinato, the Community Relations and Crime Prevention Officer. So, Michelle, take it away. Thank you.
Good evening. Hello. I'm going to read because public speaking is not my thing. So I'm Michelle Studer. I'm Vice President of Noir Technologies, and we simply set out to preserve what the community created out of love and hope for the students, the families, and all of those affected by this tragedy. My husband and our 4 children, we live just a few miles down the road in Oxford, so this really hit home. Most importantly, as community members, we feel honored to be brought into this by West Bloomfield Police Department to be part of this special project. In our industry, in AEC and public safety, it's very simplistic to share a scan platform or a scan point cloud is what they're referred to in our industry. But to really encompass the true essence of the memorial, we decided we needed to take it just a little bit further. So I just want to thank West Bloomfield Police Department for bringing us in on this project, Kitely Tech for doing an amazing job with digital creation, and also Darren Page for being a great communication liaison throughout the course of this project. So Chad is going to help me navigate. So what you have here is a URL, a very simplistic web page. It's live now. Anyone can view it from any browser. The domain is ohsvirtualmemorial.com. You can actually visit the digital memorial by clicking the link where it says click here. And that will actually immerse visitors right into the existing conditions of the memorial as it stood prior to it being taken down. They can navigate, the signal right now in this room is a little slow, but they can navigate much more fluidly online by navigating through with a simple click on the mouse, all the way up to the signage board where we actually embedded additional photogrammetry over that point cloud so that viewers can actually scroll in closely to read those messages of love and support for the community. So if you go back to the URL page and scroll down, we put together a video. We have an incredible UAV team at Noir Technologies, and with the opportunity to come scan, we just wanted to put together a little video, again, to convey our message of support and love for the community. So Chad's going to play it there, and I'm going to play on my phone because I don't think we have sound there.
We do.
Oh, you got it?
You guys hear that okay?
Leave my windows open.
So lastly, on here, we also added and embedded into the site a community board for anyone who wants to continue to leave those messages for the community far and wide. We know this touched further than just our community. These will all be moderated. They go to a queue for approval, and that will fall into our technologies and Kelly Tech in the beginning, depending on the abundance of messages, to be approved prior to posting to the site. We just wanted to offer this as a gift back to the community, just to convey our love and support for continued strength to move forward. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Jason Weiner, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Kitely Tech. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Darren, and thank you for your help, Officer Padnato. When Kitely Tech was approached with the opportunity to help create this virtual memorial, we could not say yes fast enough. The horrific events that took place here took place in our backyard. It didn't just hit too close to home, as have many other similar tragedies, but rather it hit home. Both the CEO of Kitely Tech and I grew up in Oakland County, where we are now both raising our families. It was an honor and a privilege to participate in this project and to help create an everlasting memorial for the 4 souls who were lost, and as a place for their friends, families, and survivors to visit. To the West Bloomfield Police Department, thank you for your initiative with this project, and to Know Our Technologies, thank you for allowing us to contribute. The entire Kitely Tech team sends its love, support, and strength to the entire Oxford community. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful work.
So, Darren, I remember the day that we were in that meeting, and basically you had sort of come up with an idea, and I just want to thank you for that, and all of the work and hours and time dedicated to putting this together with the entire team of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to Board of Education matters. First, we have Graduation Alliance. Jill.
Good evening. As the board is aware, and I want to make the audience aware, we have a very exciting program through Graduation Alliance that allows students who have experienced different hardships and different types of adversity throughout their high school experience here. It allows them a venue to earn a high school diploma. So rather than have to use a GED track or other adult education, we're able to provide them access to an Oxford education through Graduation Alliance partnership. And those students receive diplomas through our Oxford Crossroads Day School. I'm happy to report that we've had 5 graduates since the last time I was before you, which was a few months back, and 3 of them are here tonight. So I'd like to just give their names, and if the graduates could come up on the stage, I'll announce all 3 of you first, and then we'll clap for you, and you guys can do some pictures with your families. So these folks should be very proud. We have Sebastian Lasso de la Vega, Toby Moody, and Philip DeLuca. If you could come up to the stage, we'd like to congratulate you, Mr. Throne and Mr. Griffith. I know many of you have family here. If you want to just take a moment and come up and get some pictures, please help yourselves. Come and make yourselves at home. I know we're in a kind of an awkward space. Please, come on up. Can we get you up here with the graduates, please?
And then because of the light, you maybe we're going to switch this way, otherwise you're just going to be a big shadow. There you go. And then pretend like you like each other. And get a little bit closer.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Your diplomas will be in the mail for you, and it's a great day to be a Wildcat. Thank you.
All right, congratulations, fellas. Thank you, Jill. All right, closed session. Somebody put a motion on the table for us.
Can you read it?
Please, Heather.
Move to meet in closed session pursuant of the Open Meetings Act, Section 8C, for the purpose of strategy and negotiation sessions with a collective bargaining agreement, and 8E, to consult with the attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with a specific pending litigation.
Thank you, Heather. We have support. Eric, support. Discussion. All right, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Oh, we do a roll.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Roll call.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanser, yes. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly is excused.
Okay, motion passes. Angela, 6:53, going into closed session. All right, let's go ahead and get started again. Appreciate your patience. Angela, restarting at 8:54. Back from closed session. The next item on the agenda, superintendent contract. Right, before we get to the motion, let me just take a moment real quick to thank the board. This was quite a process working through to determine our next superintendent. Appreciate all of the effort, the attention to detail, conversations with stakeholders, reviewing feedback and such. Not to mention all the effort from cabinet and staff and the community to provide that input. So thank you. All right, Mr. Weaver. So over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of effort put into preparing Ken's contract. So I'm pleased to put that in front of you tonight, Ken, for your signature. So if I could though, if somebody could make a motion, Heather.
I'd be happy to make this motion. Move to approve the 2022-2025 superintendent contract for employment for Ken Weaver beginning March 15th, 2022, as presented.
Thank you, Heather. Do we have support? Support. Mr. D'Alessandro, thank you. Discussion. Nope, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Congratulations, Ken.
Thank you.
We'll give Ken a moment while he signs that. Congratulations, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tomorrow you got a lot of work to do. Okay, next we've got robotics field trip Ken or Tim, did you want to talk to that one before we make a motion?
Yeah, really quick, and Mr. Thorne could kind of fill in too. This is for Mr. Trombley's Robotics. This is in preparation if they make it to the World Championship, so we are doing this in case up, and depending on the outcome of the competitions to that point.
Okay, great. Could somebody put the motion on the floor for us? Mary.
Move to approve the Oxford High School robotics field trip to Houston, Texas for the Robotics World Championship as presented.
Thank you, Mary. Support? Eric, support? Thank you. Discussion? Mary.
I just wanted to add a comment that the team did participate in their first in-person event this last weekend at Rochester Stony Creek High School, who was hosting for the first time ever. It was a fabulous experience for all the kids. Our team did get picked for the finals, though we did not make it past the quarterfinals. The robot looks good. The team is fantastic. And the only two students who will be going on from any team at that event who will be going on to compete for the Dean's List Award, which is an academic achievement as well as community achievement award, are two Oxford High School students. So that's Alex and Wyatt from the team, and they will be competing at the state championships for that award coming up in about 4 weeks. That's at Saginaw Valley State University. Yes, I am a robotics mom. My kids have both graduated, but it's an amazing program, and I know they'll appreciate our support for getting them to the World Championships in Houston.
Thank you, Mary. Any other discussion? No? Oh. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Curriculum and instructions, Mr. Weaver.
Good evening again. I'm now wearing my other hat as former deputy superintendent, I guess I still am for an evening. So, and part of that is presenting Public Act 48 of 2021, Section 98B, which requires us to present standardized test scores, benchmark scores that we use in our schools, K-8. These scores are primarily made up of NWA for the virtual program for OVA, and what we use in the K-8 is FAST. And I forgot for this year as well too, I've got to back up a little bit. For OVA, K-5, we're using Fontes and Pinnell reading scores, so that's a bit of a change. We went away from the NWA for reading. We found that we were having some issues, and thanks to Dr. Pass, in his research project, we really looked at those scores and we changed from NWA because what we were finding was, quite honestly, those scores didn't truly reflect the ability. They were a little higher than what they should have been many times because nobody likes to see a K-5 student, especially K-5, struggle. So many times they were getting assistance, and therefore the scores were artificially inflated. So looking at the K-5, the Fontes and Pinnell is a much one-on-one type of reading assessment, so that really helped get more accurate scores. It's kind of stretched off. So in order to receive state aid, we needed to do this, so it's part of the requirements that is required of every school district, not just Oxford, but all school districts are to do this and to present. Now, because of the incident on November 30th, we are a little bit behind in presenting. They would like it in February, but there is nothing that says it absolutely has to be in February, but we're presenting now because we lost about a month due to November 30th. And as well, too, the scores need to be broken down and disaggregated by grade level, demographics, and mode of instruction. As you can see here, we had to set goals. First of all, we set goals for the midpoint, and we set goals for the end point of the year. And as you can see here, and I think as you have in your packet as well too, this is for the seated schools, this goal. And it's the fall FastBridge compared to the winter FastBridge scores, and looking for improvement or growth. And so the goal was set at 7.5, and the end goal for reading was at 15. And we based those off of average scores over the last few years, trying to maintain that growth that has seemed appropriate for our students. And then as well, for math, in adaptive math, that's what the AMath stands for. Because the test is computerized and it adapts as they go along, giving them harder or easier questions based on how they do as they go along through the test. In math, it was looking at 3 points and then 6 points by the end of the year. Now, they're not standardized against each other, so if one seems like, okay, it's 7.5 and 15 versus 3 and 6, it's because of the nature of the test and the way they scale the scores. The scores are scaled differently, and they correlate to that test only. They have nothing to do with each other, okay? So here is the results. In my old eyes, I can't see that far away anymore, so I've got to move over. And as you can see in the reading, the growth was 8 points, so we met the goal at that point. In the math, we were 2.6, we were just under that. And considering all that the schools endured during that stretch of time, while we always want to do as well as we can, we realize that as far as things going, it is pretty good scores, but we want to improve that and continue, and we're really looking at math as for our continued interventions in K-8 with MTSS, and that's one of the things that we're working on. You can also see the different scores. We also had to disaggregate by different subgroups, your typical groups, your economically disadvantaged, special ed, English learner, female, male, as well as different ethnicities as well. And so we look at those different groups and we try to see where we can target some of our interventions to help us do better and then try to improve the scores. Because as we improve the scores, we're improving the child and their ability for success down the road. For virtual, we also had to set goals, and this is where you can see the virtual goals are a little bit different than last year. Last year they were NWA. This year the reading is now Fontes and Pinnell, and so that is a lettered system. So it's like A, B, C, D. And one thing you should know too as well, in the kindergarten through first, second grade, the levels, if you ever had a child and you're aware of the Fontes and Pinnell system, that first 2-3 grade levels, the students go through quite a few grade levels in a year. And then once they hit 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, up through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they slow down where they only do 1 or 2 grade levels versus they could go anywhere from 4 to 6 grade levels depending on their aptitude in the younger grades. That's because the books and what separates them becomes a little bit more complex in the older grades and a little bit harder to move up, and you start seeing chapters, and it takes a little bit longer for that student to develop those skills, especially the comprehension skills, which are much more complex and a little bit more difficult to develop, and so it takes a little bit more time in between levels to move up. And as you can see, the goal for the midpoint was at least 1 level up in Fontes and Pinnell, and then as well, and that's from when they took the benchmark assessment, which was closer to the end of first trimester, so there wasn't a huge amount of time, because we usually do a quick assessment to see if there's much change, but it's not a full Fontes and Pinnell at the beginning of the year, and we tend to do the Fontes and Pinnell as we get ready for report cards. So it's not a large length of time that we're talking about. So if you're wondering about that. And then as well too, in the 2nd and 5th grade, or actually, sorry, the DK is 2 levels, and then the 2nd through 5th grade is 1, at least 1. And then as well as in 6 through 8, we're looking at the NWA RIT score as compared to the mean average across the nation, so that it would exceed that. And then as well as in math, then we went back for math, we went back into using NWA as well for all of the levels, because that's more appropriate in math, and it's a good read on math. We weren't finding the same issues that we were in reading. Okay? And then here's the scores As you can see, the OVA accomplished their goals in both the Fontes and Pinnell for the K through 5th grade, as well as they did the same in their 6th through 8th, as well as they did in the math. We combined them all for K8. That was how the goals were set. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned that well enough, is that the goal was set K8. We did break down, like I said, the reading for the virtual using Fontes and Pinnell due to the fact of just the difference in how the assessment works. Okay? And then as well, we broke the scores down by different demographics, same demographics as well. This data is all used by the MTSS teams, multi-tiered system of support teams, it's the interventions, to then try to best plan and develop individual plans for students where they might get some additional support through interventions. I think we're done. I think we are. All right, any questions?
Thanks, Ken. Any questions? Mary?
So these are assessments that we have a fast return on those scores? Correct. Are these do we score these in-house?
So it's two types of methods. Because the FAST is a computerized test, that's why we brought it in, because of the number of kids that we service on a daily basis and seated. It's too hard to do, like we do Fontes and Pinnell and we do FAST in K through 5, because you need both sets of assessments. FAST is computerized. Obviously, Fontes and Pinnell, it's the teacher sitting down with the student one-on-one, reading a passage, noting the errors and so forth, and then scoring the kid and seeing what level they get to with so many errors in their reading.
So these are assessments which are actually beneficial because we have the data back in a timely manner and we can implement the MTSS.
Yes, that's why we use them.
As opposed to state testing, which we get 6 months later.
Yes, these are very helpful in the fact that if a student is struggling or having issues, like FAST, we can give it to them and the next day we can start looking at what we need to do. FAST basically says, it's basically a screener which says, hey, I need help over here. It gives us enough information to get started, where we do a deeper dive with the diagnostic, which many times in seated we use Fontes and Pinnell for, as well as, so that's where Fontes and Pinnell can work both ways. We can use it as a screener and we use it as what's called as a diagnostic to go diving deeper into what the reading difficulty is. And then we use FAST and NWA math to do the same thing, and NWA happens to also give us a better diagnostic in that as well too. And we have diagnostics in math that we then go and try to develop an individual program for that student where they'll get interventions and assistance.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
All right, finance and ops. Mr. Barna, anything? Nothing. Okay, great. Mr. Pass, anything for human resources? Thank you. Student services. Ms. Lamond.
What am I doing? This one? Hi, good evening again. Wanted to share a few safety updates with you. You have to excuse, this PowerPoint is a little text heavy, heavier than I typically would have, but I plan to share it with the community following tonight's board meeting, and so we wanted to make sure that they had access to not just my notes, but also, you know, some of the expanded notes. So I wanted to let you know that we did hold our semi-annual district safety meeting just real recently. That was originally scheduled for December 8th, and we postponed it given everything we were going through at the time. We do have that twice a year, and we rescheduled it for February 23rd. We had it in the high school performing arts lobby in the morning. This is the list of individuals who were present. You'll notice there were folks there from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, our school resource officers. We also had Oxford Fire Department present, as well as Oxford Township leadership, and then leadership from different levels throughout the district in different seats, purposefully invited to have a different, varied levels of perspective at the table. We began by reviewing some of the policies that I've reviewed here with all of you, those regarding threat assessment, school safety information, and the documentation that we utilize pertaining to threat assessment. We also talked about the new flip charts that we received, it's been almost about a year and a half now ago, and talked about ALICE and some of our other procedures that our school employees are very well aware of. We then discussed some of the new safety items and procedures. So I want you to note, please, our professional safety assessments and trainings. I have those dates listed up there, but in short, we're providing training at every level in all the different buildings for those expressed needs. We currently have a large team of administrators and staff, as well as ESS, which is our private security firm, who have their guards that typically would work at the elementary schools who have a later start time are coming early to the high school in the mornings to help and look at our students' IDs as they come in the building in the morning. That's the process that we're utilizing, and we're looking at some different, more efficient options of doing this in the future that may not require so many staff members, but right now we have a large team every morning at each of three entrances as students come in. As you know, we have clear backpacks. We talked about that at the safety meeting. Steve and Daisha shared that student feedback has been very positive with regard to backpacks. We sort of expected some pushback and did not really get much of it. Students say in general, and again, these are all generalities, but in general, they feel safer when they can see inside the backpacks of their peers. And it is much easier in the mornings for that team of adults to look and visually scan the backpacks and the items inside. And so I want to take a step back. Mr. Weaver is going to be looking at a 3-year plan at the high school with regard to safety as one aspect, but also social emotional health and just a recovery plan. And so many of the items I'm going to talk about today, we will discuss as part of that 3-year plan with parent input and student input. But we wanted to get the safety team's input as we move forward. And so I'm just sharing one piece of the puzzle with you tonight. We're continuing to check athletic and other bags, including instrument cases and things like that in the mornings. We talked about that. This will continue for the remainder of the school year. And again, that'll be an element we look at for the future. We have that private security force through ESS that I mentioned in all buildings. While we currently have one guard at each elementary, after the safety meeting, we actually polled the staff at central office and determined that individual security guard would be better used at a different level. And so that individual, along with some other ESS staff, are now at the high school reporting, along with some substitute teachers and some staff from Oakland schools, and helping to make sure that each of the 6 bathrooms at our high school have an adult present outside the bathroom at all times. That's the hope, and that's the plan. So I don't know if you've heard from anyone this week, but we started implementing that Monday. We had previously had Oakland Schools employees helping us and volunteering, but now we're actually hiring individuals to man each bathroom. We've heard from students that was an area of need and of vulnerability, whether it be emotionally or just not feeling safe, and so we thought that was very important. We've had very positive reviews of our ESS staff at the elementary level and at the high school now as well. And they recommended that we continue our district security presence at the high school and the middle school. So we do have a full-time district security officer at the high school, a full-time school resource officer at the high school, and then identically at the middle school as well, full-time school resource officer new this year, and a full-time security officer on a district contract. We are not using lockers still at the high school. That's going to be another element we look at in the future. If you remember, we talked about that being sort of traumatic, the sound of the slamming lockers, and so that's something to look at in the future. Definitely for the rest of the year, we plan to continue not using lockers. We are currently awaiting a bid package on an audio-visual mass notification system. So we talked at the safety meeting about potentially whatever color that would alert, maybe talking to West Bloomfield schools and any other schools in the area who might be using a system like this and coming up with a uniform color for that alert so that any first responder coming in the building would know definitively what that color light meant. I don't know if we'll be able to achieve that, but I thought it was a great point added by our school resource officer in the meeting. We want the system to be monitored with our fire alert system, so that was another thing that we talked with the fire department about, and it was a rich conversation. We've ordered additional Stop the Bleed tourniquet kits for hallways and main areas. We've had an additional 100 kits and different wall mounts. We, about a year ago, replaced half of our AED fleet. We are just in the process now of replacing the other half, and we included 2 new units for new areas at the Oxford High School pool and the Oxford Middle School athletic field. So while our athletic trainer has a portable one, we thought it was important to have one at the field in case something happened maybe during gym class or something like that. So we have additional units. We're adding speakers to different areas in the building at the high school, and we also found that many of our existing speakers just could be tweaked and didn't require an additional speaker, and so we've been going through a process reviewing our speakers throughout the school. And then these are just some of the trainings that we've provided in recent weeks and months there. So one I want to highlight is the Prepare training. I personally had several parents reach out to me and talk about my child needs help, but they don't feel comfortable asking for help. So the way we've been handling trauma right now, trauma response, is through TCEP, T-E-C-I-P in most instances, and that's where the student reports that they have a need. And so now we've gotten to a point where there may be some students who either didn't self-report or didn't have an issue in the beginning, and this Prepare training helps our staff so that it's staff-identified student needs. It's a different approach to trauma response, and that training is starting with Oakland schools, and there are other districts throughout Oakland County that use the same training. It's not instead of TCEP, it's for the longer response. TCEP is more for the acute response. And then we have mental health first aid training for all of Oxford High School staff. Our Gaggle and Go Guardian software are in full swing. I really wanted to bring up this number to you so that you have an idea of how many accounts we're capturing and how much time is being spent on this really important project. So if you remember, I came up here and talked to you about how Gaggle monitors students' Google Suites. And so it's anything that a student saves on their Google Drive. It's anything that a student creates while they're logged into Google through their Google email, their school given Google email. And it actually is so smart that it follows the link. So if a student puts in a link that looks harmless and it goes to a website that is not harmless, we'll find that too. I wanted to bring up, we've had 76 Gaggle alerts just since December 7th we went live, and that was a number on March 7th. So in that short amount of time, we had 76 different alerts, and each one of those alerts signals a mental health professional, typically a team of at least 2 or 3 at any given time, who have volunteered to be on call. And then it also lets both myself, Mr. Matt Santel at the Virtual Academy, and then the building administrator now for that particular student's building know that there's an issue to follow up on. There are other items that we are considering, and this is really important about the comprehensive 3-year plan. Decisions have not been made. We did discuss several different studies that I think will be easier to read on one's own once this goes out to the public. But looking at metal detectors, the concerns that were brought up about installing them were especially related to the efficacy of them finding weapons, and then also the effect on culture and climate. Several of these studies have suggested that students have a negative feeling where they're constantly reminded or thinking about weapons and seeing the metal detectors. So we're still looking into that. The ammunition dog, as an update, we're still exploring our options. We would need to find a handler. We've talked with our liability insurance company. We would need to find a handler who was willing to release liability from the district. And so we know they're doing this in Avondale schools, and we're reaching out to them to find out how they do that and if that's an employee or how exactly they have the dog in the school with liability issues. We're looking at multiple different weapons detection softwares, and there's just some dates of the different demos that we've seen. I know we've had parents reach out to me and reach out to different members of cabinet with different exciting products they've seen throughout the United States, and I just want people to know we are looking at those things. We are spending a lot of time looking at those things with the emergency personnel, first responders. Gunshot detectors would be another software. That's a really specific solution that I know a couple parents brought to me. Our team was talking about that, and really it's detecting the danger after multiple other softwares we're looking at would have already initiated our response. So I don't want to say a final decision's been made, but we're probably less likely to go in that direction. I talked earlier about checking IDs and how it's a little inefficient in the morning just because of the number of students and staff that have to be involved in that process. We're looking at digital ID scanners. I don't know what the availability of those are, but we do have multiple folks pricing those out and quoting those for us as we speak. And then alarmed doors during the school hours, we've actually already implemented that. We made sure it was a silent alarm so as not to traumatize students if they heard it during the school day. But we heard some students were leaving for good reason to go to maybe an OSEC class or an OVA class or something off campus throughout the school day. We have so many exciting programs that kids are coming and going. And when they were going, you know, they were propping the door open or things like that. So now we have those on camera, those doors on camera, and a silent alarm goes off to the security office if a door is left open or in any way ajar during the school day. Kids should be going out the main doors only. So in and out the 3 main doors. Several parents asked me about keeping night locks in the bathrooms, keeping them possibly in glass cases. We did talk with Chief Schultz, and he said that is 100% not an option. The fire marshal at the state actually reviewed our requests, and it is not something that we can do. There's far more concern about what a student would do in a locked bathroom before we were able to remove the night lock than there is on the other side and the benefit. So it's not something we're able to do by state law. And then other ideas came from different experts in the room during our safety meeting. We talked about adding some additional night lock removal tools to Oakland County Sheriff's Office. They've also requested 5 trauma bags that we're happy to help them purchase for any kind of trauma response. We discussed our commitment as a district to all of our long-term safety solutions, and that once we do come up with a plan, it's important this same group meets probably in August or July to discuss those things and make sure everyone who's coming into our buildings as a first responder knows what we have and what we're using, and that we're all on the same page. We learned Oakland County's moving to a new handheld radio system, and so we've discussed the need to test our repeaters. We're actually in the process of doing that this week. A member expressed concerns about propped doors. I didn't want you to think everything was sunshine and roses. There was some concerns brought to us that we're looking into. And the process of clearing a building was discussed. I know several parents and actually staff members talked about some fear involved with the clearing process of the building and had some questions. And I thought, since we had the first responders present, we would ask them what the procedure is. And so I have some more clarity on that to share with staff as well. An update on therapy dogs. Well, we are aiming right now to have at least 6 dogs at the high school each day. Those dogs are brought in by volunteers right now who have just been phenomenal. And typically most days we have closer to 8 dogs, which is the goal. But those dogs, some of them only work for a certain number of hours, either because the handler only has so much time or because that particular dog can only take so many hours of cuddles. And so we're sort of at their mercy, if you will, but they've been fantastic to work with. And as you know from Ms. Beal's presentation a few weeks back, we are coming up with our own group of therapy dogs that we hope to have in place. So one point of clarity that has brought about several emails from me personally, and I think other members of cabinet, is zero tolerance. And so we have stated, and I have a direct quote from myself, that we have zero tolerance policy regarding violent content of any kind, whether in word, deed, or on social media. And that I want to really bring clarity to that any content of that nature initiates the appropriate assessment that we have in the district. It does not mean we have a zero tolerance policy for discipline, and that any student who creates something of concern is booted out of school indefinitely. That's not legal, that's not right, and that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to teach kids, and we're trying to talk to them about what's appropriate at school and provide learning opportunities as long as it's safe. And all those decisions are being made with our school resource officers at the different levels and with mental health professionals. That's really what we're talking about. Zero tolerance policy is that we're looking into every one of these. We're casting a very wide net. But all of our students do have rights, and I want to talk about the protection of FERPA. I did talk about that at a previous board meeting, but in some of the district communications where we're trying to give information out, we are very limited in what we can share. I want you to know Cabinet is discussing sort of a threshold for communication of threat assessment. So at the high school, we're doing 3 to 5 assessments, I would say, a day on any given day for something concerning. That does not mean it's a threat. It means we're walking through the process of a threat assessment because something concerning in word, deed, or on social media has triggered our process. We don't know when specifically parents want to be communicated with, and so we need to ask parents that, and we're going to work on that as a cabinet. I think that it would probably bring about too much anxiety to to send out an email every single time, and it would not be something that our administrators can keep up with at the building level. We want them spending their time teaching kids and helping kids and keeping the building safe, not communicating with me to communicate with families about threat assessment. But we do understand our community needs to know some very important information when they make a decision daily to send their kid to school. And so where is that threshold? We're going to come up with that together with the community very soon. One way we might do that is through parent forums. Mr. Weaver is looking into creating some opportunities for parents to come in for either presentations or also open dialogue for parent input on many of these items as we move forward, as well as other recovery items that will be coming out in the coming weeks. And I believe my last point here is on police presence. So you'll see we have Oakland County Sheriff's deputies here tonight. We have a very strong relationship. Thank you, by the way. We have a very strong relationship with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, and they continue to come to our school as often as they can. But we only have 2 Oakland County Sheriff's deputies that work for us. The rest of them are there as they can be, and very often, I can tell you that personally, we've had their command staff in and out of our buildings regularly, and any free cars are in our parking lots. But on any given day, you can expect to see a school resource officer at the high school and a school resource officer at the middle school. And if for some reason one of our school resource officers is out, they're finding coverage for us and making sure that we're never without those individual staff members. But beyond that, I can't guarantee on any given day how many police officers will be present in the building. I can just tell you that there's an additional presence. I can tell you that our ESS security personnel are almost exclusively retired police that are at the high school. And those are the individuals at the bathrooms that I spoke about, who are coming every single morning and checking IDs from from the elementary schools. So we do have an additional presence of security and additional police presence in Oxford. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Jill. Any questions or comments from the board? No. Jill, thank you. It's a very in-depth and the amount of work that went into this is definitely not lost on us. Really, thank you. Okay, moving into unscheduled audience participation. Eric, can you grab the cards from Angela? Usually we would take a few minutes to allow us to sort through just to put things in order, group them by subject matter. But since we were in closed session for so long, I'm going to do that as quickly as I can right here. Thank you. Just as a reminder, each speaker has 5 minutes. Just come up to the microphone. When you start talking, we'll start a timer. Mary's going to be our timer tonight, and when we get to 4.5 minutes, the yellow light will light up just to give you a warning, and then it'll light up again at 5 minutes. Just remember also that you're speaking to me as the representative on the board today. Okay. We'll go ahead and start then. First, let's hear from Steve St. Juliana. Welcome, Steve.
Good evening. I will try to make this quick. I know it's been a long evening for everyone. I have two topics I'd like to bring before you. The first is actually on behalf of my daughter, who is not able to be here tonight, but it's in regards to the temporary memorial that's under discussion right now. It's a topic that she is extremely passionate about, and I promised her I would speak to you all this evening about it. We've met several times with the administration and have had good discussions going back and forth. However, I think we're kind of at the point of a disagreement, shall we say, that we're trying to overcome. And I want to bring forth the point that it really boils down to the concept of, we're talking about photos of the victims with some words underneath it to be put into the school. And it comes down to two factors. One is the belief by Dr. Henry that the photos would be triggering or potentially triggering to students. And that then leads to the other issue of then where to put it. The idea that the photos would necessarily be triggering, with all due respect to Dr. Henry, is simply his opinion. I have reached out also to mental health professionals that are trained in trauma, grief, etc., as well as some survivors of similar incidents, and basically they have differing opinions. I've actually asked them for some clinical research, or say research into to see what research has been done. There's been actually very little. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in certain ways. But I do have some citations. I won't go into all that tonight, but I'd be more than willing to sit down with anybody and discuss it further, that show that the memorials that come from the victims and the associated people and the memorializing of the people, etc., tend to be very beneficial overall. It symbolizes acknowledgement, solidarity, closeness, and empathy. So this kind of all goes down to what the proposal is that there are so many potential triggers that exist in the school right now. We just heard the presentation about the security measures. Having armed police officers walking around the school, constantly seeing the therapy dogs, the sounds, everything else could be a potential trigger to basically say that we can't have pictures of the victims in the school because it may be triggering, I think is a bit of a stretch. Especially considering that there's already pictures hanging in the school of at least one of the victims. So it's not something, if it's not been an issue so far, the proposal is ask the student body and the teachers directly. And I don't mean a sampling here and there of them, a simple poll to the whole student body and teachers, and to gather their thoughts and say, do they think it's too much for them? At the very least, you'll have a good baseline to go off of instead of the guesswork that is there right now. So that was my first topic. The second topic is how much time do I have? I haven't been paying attention, but okay. The second topic is a little more difficult in some ways. It's been brought up over and over. I have not honestly been paying so much attention to the board meetings in the last couple of months. The last couple of days I went back and watched the videos of several of the meetings. And one of the topics that has been brought up over and over, and I'm frankly very curious about, is the third-party investigation into what's going on, or what I should say, what happened. And I would really, I'm curious as to, at this point, what is the purpose of the third-party investigation? Because I've heard different purposes from what was right after the event to, I think, the February 22nd meeting. Mr. Connell, I think it was, talked about this kind of grand scheme of the investigation. So that was the one question of what's the purpose. It was talked about that it couldn't happen now because of the ongoing criminal investigations. If you wait a year to do this investigation, what's the point? Because the criminal trials are going to take a year or more. So this idea of you're waiting for that to be over, it's kind of begs the question. At that point, what is the point? The idea that, and the answer that Mr. Mullins gave, I found particularly interesting. When A.G. Nessel volunteered to step in and be a third party and look at what happened, she wasn't talking and focused on the criminality. Her offer was to look at, see, where did the system break down? What happened? What went wrong? Which should be the focus of this investigation that we're talking about. And it was rebuffed by this board. And Mr. Mullins' response that, oh, she could step in, the AG could step in and take over from the prosecutor at any time if she thought she wasn't doing her job, was focused entirely on the criminal aspect of it and sidestepped the whole other issue entirely. The prosecutor has made very clear she is not stopping the investigation. Her only request was that before any potential evidence be released, it be cleared with her office. This has been clarified by several people several times. I have it in writing from the prosecuting attorney. So, my question then, back to the beginning. What is the purpose? What are you waiting for? Somebody mentioned there was $500,000 in the budget for this activity. Spend it on the safety measures. If you're going to wait a year and this is just a propaganda activity. That's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Hey, I'm sorry, before we move on, Steve, I want to make sure, me make sure that I got the high points. We're talking about the memorial. You said that there's a lot of potential triggers, and you don't want, or let me say it this way, a lot of potential triggers, but using that as a reason to not put photos of the children in the memorial is going a little too far. Is that accurate to say?
Yes, when potentially there's so many of these things, I understand the effort to reduce the exposure to the triggers and to the most potential, highest potential triggers, if you will. I understand that. The loud noises, the alarms, etc. The point comes down to, is a picture of my daughter really going to be a trigger? When they can see her face going into the gymnasium, there's a big banner of her hanging in there right now. It has been for a while. Her picture is all over the news. That's what it comes down to.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out. My heart breaks for you, and appreciate you coming out. Catherine Waymaster. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, good evening. Let me wipe the tears. I'm just a mom, and I'm a mom of twin sophomores, and two things. The last few months have been a roller coaster of things happening. And this past week has really been a rough one for us. Earlier this week, prior to school restarting, we received emails saying that the children would be allowed to keep their cell phones with them in class at the high school. And I understand that this week, or last week, teachers went to trauma counseling on their Wednesday, and they were asked to start regaining normalcy, which I understand. Normalcy for our family does not include handing over our phones during class. It was very upsetting to my daughter being stuck in her classroom that day, watching 30 phones in a cubby strapped to the door that was barricaded shut, ringing, beeping, vibrating, all kinds of music. Everybody's phones has different settings. Went off for an hour and a half that day. They were not able to get to them. All those parents were not able to contact or talk to their children to find out what was going on. My daughter was in her room for an hour and a half before she was able to contact us. I have talked to the teachers, and they said they had just suggested handing over the phones, but that's not what happened. They asked the kids to hand over their phones. And that to me is not, it's not going to float just yet. It's not time for that one. The second thing that was upsetting this week is, as a parent of a high schoolers seem to know more than everybody. And what they do know is the exact identification of Ethan's texting buddy. They know who he is. They've known him for years. And they are deeply concerned about what's going to happen the day that he is released from his mental facility care and returned to Oxford schools. That is something I think we need to be proactive about, because the day that that boy returns to my school is the day that my children will not return to that school as well. And talking to the many parents that I've spoken to, there needs to be, I understand the laws that say we have to provide an education, I understand that there is laws that govern what we do. But for this particular individual, I think we have to see what our options are before we are faced with them head on in a disaster that could possibly, I'm not saying that this kid could do something. What I'm saying is the trigger of having this boy return to school will be devastating in that high school. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Bush. Hi, Emily. Hi.
I just wanted to, I can empathize with the previous parent about the week being a rough one. Last week, I know that many of the parents in here are aware of an incident that happened on Thursday. I know it was alarming to a lot of families. And I have 2 points I'd like to address with regard to that particular incident. From what I can gather in trying to understand the response from the school and the district, you have policies preventing the kind of communication that parents have been asking for since our incident. From the school, from the district. The district is bound by policy. As the last 104 days have gone by, I've given myself a very crude crash course in FERPA and FAPE. I'm trying to learn your language, and I'll keep learning. We want to partner with you, the district, the teachers, and learn what changes to policy as a district we can support for you, for the schools. These policies may be getting in the way of our students' learning by way of keeping children in school who may need more in-depth interventions. Teachers are mitigating disruptive behaviors at the expense of our children's learning. How can we, as parents, learn which policies are getting in the way of our kids' learning? Teach us. Tell us how to help you and our teachers. We want to help you focus on educating our kids without getting lost in keeping as many kids in school as possible. Learning should never take a back seat to teachers constantly mitigating disruptive behaviors. Our kids deserve better. The second point I wanted to make is that, unfortunately, we're missing opportunities to help our children become more self-aware, learn to manage themselves, and to be socially aware. Regardless of a child's general education status or special education status, we're missing the opportunity to help our children master essential life skills needed to launch into adulthood. How do we help these kids that don't understand that it's not okay to talk about guns? How do we help them manage themselves so that they understand it's not okay to talk about disturbing things in school? And how do we help them become more socially aware of others and develop a better sense of community and a better culture for all of our kids? So We want to help and we want to partner. Teach us your language. Teach us how we can help with policy. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Andrea.
Hello.
Hi, Andrea.
I actually have a question, excuse me, about the okay to say. When somebody makes a report on there, I understand that it comes to somebody within the school system. And so my question about that is how is the data stored? Say, for example, 2 years ago, there was a threat that was reported through okay to say, and it involved a specific student, and they investigated it and found it not to be a threat. Does that stay on file so that if 2 years later down the road something is reported, that same student name comes back up, does it red flag to the other one that, you know, this is a second incident with that same person? Where is that data stored? Who checks that? Because there might not have been a disciplinary record made if there was, you know, nothing found. But when you have multiplying incidents with the same person, I'm just wondering if it actually links them together. So that is my question.
Thank you, Andrea. We're gonna take that back, but I think probably the best way to say that is we don't own that data, so we'd really have to look into that one. Thank you. Good question. Madeline Krozak. Hi, Madeline.
Hi. So I'm a freshman at the high school, and I wrote a poem last week that, oh crap, I promised myself I wouldn't cry, that shared my feelings as well as expressed many emotions other students are going through. I would like to give you an inside look on what most students go through on a daily basis. My poem is called Stuck, and this is maybe a warning for some listeners. I'm stuck in the hallway where I thought I was gonna die. Stuck replaying over and over again in my mind what happened on November 30th. Stuck remembering all my classmates running for their lives, yelling, "This can't be happening, run, shooter, help us." Stuck thinking about hearing the blood-curdling screams of a girl. Stuck remembering being frozen in time, standing in the middle of the hallway not moving. Stuck thinking this is it. This is the end. Stuck every day now, constantly thinking how I will never be the same. Stuck flinching every time someone makes a loud noise. Stuck too scared to open the door for students outside the classroom. Stuck looking around every room I'm in, thinking, where am I gonna hide, or what am I gonna use to defend myself if something goes down? Stuck too scared to go to the bathroom by myself in school. Stuck waking up every night drenched in sweat from nightmares that I can't outrun. Stuck thinking, how am I gonna let my kids go to school in the future? Stuck thinking how it haunts me every minute, every second I'm in that school, knowing that the devil visited us that day. How his presence is still scattered throughout our home, Oxford High School. He stays invisible like a ghost in our halls. We all know he's there. We can feel the weight on our shoulders and the shiver we get when we forget for a second. And then we face reality once more. I'm stuck, just like how I was trapped, scared, and frightened in school that very day. I'm stuck, but why can't you see that? I try and walk into that school that I call home, bravely walking in because that's what we're supposed to do. We're brave, we're strong, You shove that word strong down our throat as if it's supposed to fix anything. But the real question I always ask myself, is it really over? If it's over, then why am I still thinking that it'll happen again? I'm stuck. Why am I still stuck? Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Madeline, thank you for sharing that with us. I recognize that it took courage to do that. Appreciate it. Brian Cooper.
Hello. I'm just going to read it tonight and try and stick with the script. Before I get started, though, I just have to say, Madeline coming up and just speaking like that and knowing what this community has to say and acknowledging how hard the administration is working to put the changes in place that they're doing, it just speaks to the fact that we want this to be a community. The conversations still have to happen, and that's the premise of my talk tonight. I can't sit here and point fingers and talk about what was done in the past. I acknowledge that even before this circumstance happened, Oxford had measures that a lot of schools don't, and I'm grateful for that. There's reasons why what happened, and I think as Madison just spoke to, if we don't address some of these things, it can continue to be a problem. While I recognize and appreciate the updates to physical safety, I continue to have significant concerns about the emotional safety of our children and especially their teachers. In listening to the teachers at several board meetings, what I understand is that they're not being heard. Renee spoke at the last one, Renee Upham, and I feel comfortable using it because she spoke publicly. She made fantastic points at the last meeting expressing her disappointment in the district not reaching out to them for feedback, not only to assist in healing but to recognize both the needs of students and teachers themselves. As I have to be honest and say that teachers probably know some of our students better than the parents themselves, some of them. That's a reality. Teachers will struggle to educate when they are not well. To be fair and transparent, surveys are sent out to both teachers and students, but as mentioned many times, this is not necessarily the most effective technique. This speaks to Steve's point in that we're following the advice of professionals and experts. When you speak to the community, they might have a different feeling about that. For approximately 2 months, we've been asking for a forum-style meeting in which students, educators, and parents can sit down to discuss what must occur to heal this community. 10 days have passed since Renee spoke. Teachers have reached out to her, expressed their support, and acknowledged that they feel the same. But I'm curious to know which administrators, if any, have reached out to her. In the days since the incident, the message has remained consistent. We, the community, the teachers, and the students have requested a conversation. We're not looking to point fingers, we're looking to heal. While the conversation may be uncomfortable, they are necessary. We have few days left in this school year, and that makes me panic. There's 31 for our seniors and 57 for the rest. And I fear sending these students and teachers off to summer break without a conversation, it will be detrimental to their health and well-being. I'm fearful that if these conversations are not had, we will drive our teachers out. I've had the opportunity to hear and listen to them, and some of them have spoke to us and the community. And they're tired, and everybody is tired, and I think this is, I'm afraid they'll leave. And that point was made, that after shootings, I think like after Sandy Hook, maybe there was 40% of teachers that left after 5 years. Jill, the teacher, spoke at the last meeting and mentioned a critical need for additional staff. If we're financially unable to do this, we need to acknowledge this and as a community secure resources or come up with alternatives. Look towards peer support groups, acknowledging what needs to change and allowing them a forum to speak. Teachers are not okay, that's clear. My child recognizes this. My 10th grader has mentioned to me on several occasions that teachers seem to struggle more than the students do. What we do moving forward will shape our future. Dan mentioned at one of the last staff meetings that we need parent involvement and questions what we can do to make this happen. The district needs to let the parents know that they are needed. Education is not a one-way street, and we understand that. So ask the parents to help. The ones that will want to help will help. and I'm sure there's plenty of them there. While I understand that everyone is not entitled, that everyone is entitled to a free and appropriate education, this must come with expectations. Education is a gift and must be respected as that. It has been implied that our current system has tied the hands of schools in regard to purposeful discipline. With no consequences for actions, children have no reason to change their behavior. We need compassion, we need a human touch. Healing will not occur by blocking it out. Let them speak. Facilitate conversation. Rise up and be the leader. Words are hollow when not followed by action. 104 days is too long. We must not forget in last thing with Steve, I mean, that shouldn't even be a conversation. And if we can't do it as a school, I would be happy to facilitate that through the community, to find a place that we can acknowledge their children with images and things that the families want. That's the least that we can do to remember the spirit of those children. And that's not even debatable as far as I'm concerned. That should be based on community and student input. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Jennifer Clemens. She left? Okay, thank you. Anne? Hi, Anne.
Hi, I'm a parent of a 9th grader and an 11th grader, and we are new to this district as a couple of years ago and from a neighboring district, and so it's been hard this last year because our kids have been involved in different things, but it is very hard to parent right now, and I appreciate all the people that have spoken today. I think a lot of us have had a hard time waiting to come and speak because it's not been very receptive for parents. There's been a lot of hostility that I've heard when I've heard the parents speak, and what got me here were when the teachers have spoken, and I've heard 2 meetings where they have spoken, and the last meeting they came on a Friday night. I just think that's crazy. I think it's crazy how much we ask of our teachers, and I appreciate everything that you do, and I appreciate all that the school does. We're not doing enough for our teachers or our students, and I'm here tonight because I am very worried. I am very worried. I'm more worried than I was directly after what happened. And I think knowing people that have been through this, I have a good friend that had sons that were at Chardon, Ohio, when that happened, and they're adults now. It is not something that leaves you, and I don't think we're doing enough for the people that are still in the building, especially our teachers. I want to know what we are doing for them. I want to know if they can honestly come to people and talk about what they need. Because as a parent, I don't feel that way, and I don't even work for the district. So what are we doing for our teachers? I want to know. I want to know what the plan is for them to help them so they don't leave us, because we know financially that's going to cost a lot of money if they leave. And I would not blame them. I don't know. I sent messages to Oxford Strong. I never heard back. I sent messages to the town hall meeting. I never heard back. What are we doing for our teachers? And then I hear them here on a Friday night, not even the high school teachers, there's our middle school teachers that are asking for help. We need to think about what we can do to help. I don't have that power. I'm a parent. I can come and speak at every board meeting if that's what it takes. But I am asking you to look at that. That needs to be looked at. I don't know how they're back in a school. I physically don't know how they're back in a school teaching with what happened. I have no idea with the stories I've heard. And I know that we're proud of them, but we need to show that by supporting what they need. And I think Wednesdays are great for our kids. Our kids are hitting walls, and I know our teachers are too. So I'm glad that there's Wednesdays, but is that the day they need? Are they getting what they need on those Wednesdays? Do they need time off? What do our teachers need? They're not getting it. I don't see how they're getting it when we have teachers here at a board meeting, or if they're too afraid to talk about what their needs are. As a parent, I want that. I know with my students, they're not big talkers. One is still having a very hard time talking about what went on. And from talking to my friend when she went through what she did, this is normal. And so because we got through what we went through on the 30th, and kids went back to school, and parents want things to get back to normal, that doesn't mean that we are normal. That means that there needs to be a roadmap for how we're going forward, not saying, okay, check, we have them back. Check, they're participating in stuff. Check, they're getting good grades. Because if you look at the headlines after most of those events, what happens to kids, parents, teachers? There are real things that we need to look at. And maybe you are looking at it. As a parent, I have no idea. I see us putting out fires with security still. I see us not listening unless we're here and knowing that things are being heard. If we're here, I don't have any other roadmap from that. As a parent, I would like to know a roadmap ahead for our students that are going to be leaving, like was mentioned. For our seniors, I'm very worried about them. I don't have a senior and I'm worried. What's going to happen when they go away to school? What is going to happen? Are we looking at that? Are we looking at our kids when they go home for the summer? If they don't have a parent that cares, what are we doing for them? I am really upset, if you can't tell. I'm very upset to know what is going on with them. Our 8th graders coming into high school next year, where is that roadmap? How are we preparing the teachers at the middle school and the teachers at the high school? I would like to have a roadmap for our kids, for our mental health. Our teachers have asked for more mental health. I saw a posting. The posting was not for a lot of money. We need to put money into that for our kids. Those teachers talked about what happened in the middle school, and those aren't even high schoolers yet. They're coming up. So please provide a roadmap. I have one more thing that I would want to mention, please. One more thing I would like to mention. This was beautiful what they did for the memorial. Our kids want to see those kids that are no longer with us. They want to see them. So I think it's a great idea. And it was very hard for our kids to see that memorial down. So please, as other people are suggesting, pull more of the kids. Not all kids are going to respond on a survey. Not all kids are going to talk. Not all kids are in leadership. We need to find other ways to reach kids and find out what they need and want. And our families and our kids that are really affected, all of them, the parents that lost kids, I want to hear more about what we're doing for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. George?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. The last speaker talked about what we can do to support our teachers. Let's get them a great contract. I have a 9th grader and 11th grader at the high school, and they love their teachers. They're wonderful. Every step of the way through the school system, it's no exaggeration to say that we haven't had a negative experience with our teachers. they're the unsung heroes in this community. It's why we moved here. But I'm very concerned for them. The notion that I have heard expressed that teachers don't do this for the money, that we, in negotiating a contract, need to give them what they believe they think they need, while allowing for other priorities within the district, really concerns me. What that says to me is that we are going to cut and manage costs on the backs of the teachers. We were one of the only communities, as we all know, to go back to school in the middle of a global pandemic. And I know we're all proud of that, of how the administration and our teachers performed, but they put their health at risk, at great risk. We all know on November 30th, they were literally throwing their bodies on students to protect them from a shooter, giving life-rendering aid as the shooter walked past them. So the idea that we are going to balance the budget on the backs of the teachers concerns me. We heard a couple meetings ago from Mrs. Ribant, who talked about how stressed teachers are and how that they may leave the district, they may leave their jobs. We just heard how there could be a mass exodus of teachers because of what happened on top of all of the stresses that come with this field. So I think our teachers deserve more than what they need. They deserve everything that we can give them. They're not just the unsung heroes, they are the heroes in this community. At Oakland University, where I work, we had a strike at the beginning of the year. It was very painful for all of us. The administration didn't listen to us. They wanted to cut our pay and benefits and a whole lot more. They continued not to listen. There was no dialogue or relationship whatsoever. It wasn't until we went on strike that they even began to listen. So that was a very painful time, and I don't want to see that happen here. Don't make that mistake. Please support our teachers. Let's get them a great contract. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Rukeya?
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I just basically want to say, I think we all realize that it's going to be a long road for our kids, for their mental health and development and healing. And I didn't realize really how long this process was going to be until I read the young lady's poem about being stuck. That resonated not just with my son, but with myself. Today when I was filling out my little form, I had to think about the date. And I knew it was March 14th only because it's Pi Day and there was big stuff in the news about it. Because to me, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in November 30th, as is my son. And moving forward is going to be a very, very slow process for some people, slower than others. And when the school put out the announcement that there was going to be, these next 2 Wednesdays were going to be asynchronous learning, my junior was like, thank God, I just need a break. And I didn't realize, you start getting back into school and stuff like that, and you think you're moving forward, and I didn't realize that he wasn't. And so when he said, thank God, I just need a break, I realized that the Wednesday asynchronous days were perfect. And I just wanted to put that out there as a parent, that maybe continuing these asynchronous Wednesdays, at least in this immediate future, might be a good idea for both students and for teachers, for the mental break that they need, for the counseling that they might need, providing counseling, providing maybe group therapy, the Zoom sessions. Those were all an excellent idea, and I just wanted to put it out there that if we could maybe continue that, that would be wonderful. And I mean, I had a lot to say, but I'm not going to say that because I think everybody covered all of it. But just wanted to say that I think communication is extremely important. I'm coming here and I'm hearing people saying the same thing over and over again. We need to hear from you guys, whether it's about an independent investigation, whether it's about what are we doing in terms of safety, just knowing that there is policies or procedures in place. We don't need to know the details. I don't need to know exactly how many kids are being flagged, but to know that is happening, that there is a procedure in place, that there is people working on it, gives me that sense of security that I don't know that people are doing, that the administration is doing, or the school board is doing. We don't need to know details, but just to know that you're on it. Are you guys talking to teachers? Are teachers getting the help? We're hearing people say it. We need to hear you guys say we are working with teachers. We are providing counseling for teachers. We do have these security things in place. We are reviewing our procedures for that day. Lastly, I mean, just with the independent investigation, I know that there's no talk about it, but there's a preliminary investigation and a lot of stuff came out. You not talking about it doesn't make it not available to us. The preliminary investigation has, we listen to voicemails. It's important for you guys to communicate to us what happened that day. That independent investigation, the timeliness is critical. It's very critical, not for any other reason, but even for our mental healing. Like I said, I'm stuck in November 30th, but I'm stuck and I don't know what happened that day. I'm not here to point fingers. I just need information. And that's what's critical here. Communication between the board, between the administration and the parents is what's critical, and I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaya. Marcy.
I know I'm not speaking. I don't think I should speak today for my comments.
Okay. That was the last. One more?
Thank you.
Thanks. Lori. Hi, Lori.
Hi. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. First of all, I just wanted to say, Mr. St. Juliana said something today, the school, he had to come here to ask for his picture of his daughter to be up in the school. Because once again, the school said it would induce trauma, a trauma response. He suggested that he's spoken with other experts who said it won't induce that trauma that our experts say. It brings up the question that on 222, Mr. Mullins gave us an answer. We asked, who are the experts? And the response was kind of a joke of a response that he gave us, which is, I don't know what experts, everybody's an expert. We've told you who the experts are. You know who the experts are. They're the kids. He said, ask the kids. We've been asking to ask the kids since December. They will answer if you ask them direct questions. They want to pay tribute to those students. Just ask them. That's who the experts are in this situation here. No one else. As far as the investigation, we know that the prosecutor talked to Mr. Mullins before February 22nd, explaining that an investigation can be done. They're not stopping one from being done. At the board meeting on 2/22, he got up and said, "We aren't doing it because the prosecutor, we can't do it, it'll affect the criminal trials." Prosecutor sent out a statement after the 2/22 meeting that clearly said an investigation can be done. We aren't saying you can't. We won't tell you you have to. We're not going to get involved in that, but we are saying we're not the reason you can't do it or won't do it. I am curious to know if you're still saying that we can't do one until after the criminal trials. I was unclear on whether the delays were because of criminal or civil trials. But I would like to know if that's still the stance now that the prosecutor's statement has come out. As far as our threat assessments, I do think, again, we need to get more experts involved. I believe, as parents here, a lot of our issues with security, with the threat assessments, is that we're not being allowed to be involved in this. All we wanted since December is to have a committee, ask some of us to be involved, some police officers, some of the school, some of the fire, middle school, some teachers, just a committee where we're all involved and make some choices on that security. I can't understand why we still only have 2 security guards and 1 SRO at the high school. I understand why we did before. I know our kids need to feel safe. That's our problem. You're doing a lot of work towards trying to help them with their mental health, and it's recognized, the dogs and that, but why aren't we increasing the security? I understand we're having some guards now come on over, and that's great to hear. I'm happy to hear that that's happening, but what the students that I've talked to want are more contracted police patrolling the school throughout the day. I've asked my son what would be his gold medal and what would be just good enough as far as security in the school. His gold medal choice is we're going to have metal detectors, we're going to have a safety dog, the ammo sniffing safety dog, and we're going to have 6 officers. His, at the very minimum, is 4 officers that can patrol each quadrant of the school throughout the day and be more at the entry and exit plans at the beginning and end of school. What I'd like to know is what's holding us back from having more SROs? Is it money? Is it trying to say that nothing was done wrong before November 30th? I don't understand what the reason is for it. Maybe if we know why, we can help. Maybe if it is money, I know that in some states, the municipalities help them out with paying for one. Maybe we can get that worked out where we can get the township and village and some other places like that to get together and help cover the cost of an extra SRO, or a couple extra would be ideal for the high school. So that's it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lori. Jumping back into the agenda, scheduled activities. Got spring break, board meeting on the 12th, another on April 30th, the 10th, and June 14th. Tim, any clarifications?
None tonight.
Thank you. Final board comments? Dan?
Thank you. First, I want to say a few things pertaining to everything that we've gone over. First, Jill, I know that it's been a trying conversation at times that you have to have on behalf of our district. I appreciate you taking that role on the way that you have, because it's never going to be an easy task to do. In the best of times, it's not easy, and in today's times, it's even worse. Because as we have heard this evening, there are varying levels of how people feel. And every one of those levels are important. Ken, I wish you well. I know that your team is behind you, we're behind you, and we want to give you every opportunity for this community to get behind you. Earlier, we went into a 2-hour conversation, discussed some of the things that were brought up. I think George brought it up about our negotiations, and I'm happy to say that David Pass is working his, I probably shouldn't say that, but he's working as hard as he can to make sure that that's happening the way that so we can make everybody feel that they're valued when this contract comes out. The other part of that was we had a nice long, I don't know if the conversation might be the right word for it, but it may be a little bit vigorous debate with Ken, who's representing our attorney firm. And I was one up here that was pushing faster to get this third party conversation happening. I still think it's very, very important. But there are a lot of nuances to it. Nuances that could, quite frankly, bankrupt this district. And I don't know that I'm willing to go that far yet to push for speed over the fiduciary responsibility that we all hold to this community. This community I grew up in the 80s, you could shoot a cannon down M24 and you may not have hit anything because there was nothing here. This district is the largest employer of this community. We have to do it right. We're the custodians of this district. We owe it to ourselves to look out for this district. But that starts by looking out for the staff and students first and foremost. Parents entrust us with the education and well-being of their children, and that is something we do not take lightly, and we will never take lightly. Everything we do is in concert with our staff, and thank God they are as good as they are. They are without a doubt one of the largest, they have the largest impacts on our students, your students. They connect with them in their darkest of times, and they're often the ones who are the first ones to celebrate our students' successes. Teachers simply make the district. Many of our students and teachers who have questions about safety and security search for answers to their questions. It's incumbent upon us as a board to make sure that those answers happen. We need to act in a manner that represents the gold standard that we want. So moving forward, we have to act cautiously, but we have to hear what our community is saying. And we have to do anything we can do to start to heal this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other comments? No? Okay. Couple of notes. First, thank you to all of the community members that came out to share their thoughts, ask their questions, tell their story. I didn't read back all of your comments as Tom would, but please know that I took notes, and I absolutely will pass those on. We will get questions answered. So if you had a question and your contact information is there, we'll get back with you. But thank you, whether you shared something or whether you were just sitting here to support others that did. You were appreciated. Jill, I said it once already. Dan touched on it. The safety update. It's obviously a big point of interest. But I will say again, it is not lost on us the amount of effort by you and by the team to make sure that these things are in place. I really appreciate you sharing those notes with us tonight, sharing with the community. I know that some questions that have been answered, some questions that have been asked, I think were answered in that. So thank you for walking us through that. Very much appreciated. Tim, it's your last official day as superintendent. It's been last official day because Ken takes over first thing in the morning. So it's been a pleasure. Very proud to have served with you. Wish you and your family nothing but the best. As I said earlier, make sure that I get your phone number, a new phone number, because I'm sure you're getting rid of the old one, right? We'll have to, we'll have to play some golf. Ken, congratulations. You've got obviously big shoes to fill, but you've got the confidence of this board that you are the right person for that. That you have what it takes to fill those shoes and guide us into the future. So congratulations. Anything under other? Nope. Okay. With that, we are adjourned, 10:33, and it is a great day to be a Wildcat.